This is EUphoria episode 14. We are available on Soundcloud, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. I'm Drakos here with my co-host Yamato and our special guest today, Bwipo. We're going to be talking all about the man, the myth, the legend himself, as well as playoffs. Exciting weekend ahead of us. And just to get into it, Bwipo, how's the mental state in this quarantine that we're in? I ask this every week at the start of the week just to get the update. I feel like everyone's living through this shared experience together. I'm curious, how's it going for you? Are you happy? Are you comfortable? What's life like?
I think I'm happy and comfortable. I think it's both. I mean, to be fair, it's pretty easy for someone like me. Like I basically spent my free time like this. So I basically grew up doing exactly this, which is just chilling at home. So it's not really anything new for me.
See, the best part about this is all the moms out there who told their kids to get outside more and play more. You've just held your child back now in this modern era that we live in.
I'm ready for this.
Now your kids want to go outside and play and they can't. You should have told your kids to stay inside and play video games. That was the safe choice. So bless up. Yamato, how about you? I feel like I haven't developed any new hobbies. People keep posting these inspirational posts about how they're going to like come out of this quarantine like super ripped or like able to play a new instrument, and I feel like I'm just chilling and playing Valorant. I don't know what your take is, Yamato.
Yeah, kind of in a similar boat. You know, it's like I had already so many hobbies. You know, it's like League of Legends keeps me busy. Like it's weird because I'm having more fun with the game than I've had like in a long time. Like I genuinely enjoy playing League of Legends, and that's that's my hobby. I just keep playing League and. I do a lot of yoga and stretching, you know, that has helped me keep sane and just some activity in the morning, cold showers, and I feel kind of the same again in comparison to the first weeks because the first weeks were kind of rough.
Yeah, definitely was a bit of an adjustment period. But I hope that most people are in a similar boat to you, Bwipo, as far as our listeners go, that it's just like, hey, we love gaming. We love chilling at home. I would argue it's a little bit more than I'm used to, but hopefully everyone's making that transition smoothly. But outside of home, Bwipo, let's talk a little bit about the professional life. How has the year been so far for you from a professional standpoint? What have you been happy with? What's been disappointing? How's it been
going? Mostly a good year. It's hard to say anything that I've been disappointed by. I feel like you can only really get disappointed when you mismanage your expectations, which is something that you do learn as a pro player. I think that's one of the biggest things you actually end up learning. Moving into splits and whatnot, and like making sure you don't get disappointed by silly losses, because ultimately it's a best of one format. Things can go wrong. And as long as you're... The thing that, in contrast to getting disappointed by losing to a weaker team, what feels good is even when you lose to a better team or a team that just beat you. For example, G2, we lost against G2 twice. At least the times we lost felt like we could fix whatever went wrong very easily. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. So I'm curious then on the subject of you setting expectations for yourself. Like, do you have clear expectations for this split for the start of this year that you?
I mean, just in general, just making sure that you don't like try to overachieve. I think that's like the first thing you need to do. Like don't expect more than what is reasonable. So like, don't like go into the split thinking 18-0 or it's lost. You know, that's usually not a good. That's not a good start. You know, but if you're like, you know what, we're gonna try our best and we're gonna play our heart out, and what matters is that when we play on stage, is that we play games that we feel happy playing and we feel like confident. That's a good start, right? Like you play to your own game plan, you play to what you wanted to accomplish. You feel like you personally are doing what you should be doing, and you're happy with your performance, and then that leading into your teammates. Sorry, I'm getting my cat are actually just running around.
It's fine. They're distracting. Yamato has to deal with it all the time too.
Yeah,
I am living cat free.
It's very cute because they're like chasing each other around, and it's the funniest thing. That's it. Going back to the point. As long as you have a reasonable expectation of this is what is a good performance and that's what's not good, it's hard to get disappointed, I feel like. But of course, you know, like in my rookie year and whatnot, I had times where I got disappointed because of simple stuff like my own performance, whereas now it's much easier to focus on delivering a satisfactory performance if your expectations are what they're supposed to be. You're not picking first pick, blind pick, and then getting counter picked, and then being like, oh, I didn't carry the game, what a disaster. It's more like, all right, this is what my job is, this is what I should be doing for my team, and that's good enough. And anything I do more than that is great. And if I manage to shoot under that mark, is it something that I can fix by like figuring it out, right? Is it something that's like very easy to fix? Or is it something where you have the feeling that, oh, the enemy team we just played against is so good that we can't win, Like that's where the problem lies, is when, for example, I imagine that some teams that play against us and against G2 and maybe OG, and they can't win, and they're just like, oh, they're just too good. I don't think we can win. I think when you reach that point is when it's disaster.
Yeah.
Any defeat outside of that, I think you're okay.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you have such a positive mindset and that you kind of like clearly identified how to make that sustainable, especially in terms of expectation setting. But I also think it's made slightly easier by the fact that, and Yamato, I think you may agree with me on this. I want to get your thoughts on this too. I feel like this has been the best year ever so far that we've seen from you as an individual player, Bwipo. Yamato, would you agree?
I think, I just, like, before we started, I just, like, thought in my mind what was Bwipo's, like, previous years, and, like, the story of how everything started is still just so crazy, like, the whole thing with, like, your first initial matches, like, you went almost instantly to MSI, and then you had the World Finals the same year, and then the next year, 3rd place, first spring, and then summer, 2nd place with the best of 5s going to 5 games against G2, and then of course the FPX 3-1. You guys took a game off them. You solo killed Gimgun with Rengar into Camille as well. I think contrasting your performances, thinking about what is the most standout, and I feel like this spring it felt like the stars are aligning for what you want to do, and it seems like you have like this freedom of expression in comparison to past years, because it seems like you're in a position where you can, as you mentioned, you can fulfill the role that needs to be fulfilled. Like, I think in order for a top laner to be willing to lock in something like Zac or Malphite, knowing that on paper the matchup is worse, but just fulfilling something that needs to be fulfilled, I think comes from a lot of trust within the team and also comfort. And I think this year seems to be like where Bwipo can express himself as he wants to, because you are a very unique player, and I think that's important. How would you view it, Bwipo, for spring? Because this seems to me like Bwipo's year, so to speak.
I don't know about the year. It's a long year.
Of course.
Focus on what's first, right? That said, I think that the biggest difference between this year and the others has been that honestly, it feels very similar to 2018 summer. I was playing bot lane. I know some people might remember that stint, but it was very similar, right? I was playing, I think, a new champion every other week. I don't think I played much of the same champion. Started off with Swain and Vlad, and it ended up with Jace, Galio, and Victor. I went all the way around. Gangplank got chucked in somewhere there. It was very similar to this split in the sense that whenever something new comes up, I feel like the whole team is like on it, and they understand that it doesn't really matter what you play as long as you fulfill that role, right? That's, I think, the most important thing. So when I'm like, I think this champion does that job better, people are more inclined to jump on that train. It's not like, why are you playing Malphite? There's no one playing Malphite. I don't see Malphite in the LCK. I'm not saying that that's what people do, but that's really what people do.
It's definitely what some people do.
Sure. I've heard that phrase many times.
Yeah, it's like, well, why are we playing this? I haven't seen this champion in this region. It's like, but
you just make
honestly,
up a reason.
I mean, in 2019, 2020, it started getting better, right? But 2018 was still very much Korean fanboy era. So it was like, why are we playing this? People that don't play that over there. That said, when I was playing bot lane, we all understood that I wasn't going to cut it on the meta, right? And even then, even what was considered meta was Swain and Victor, or Swain and Vladimir, basically. So, I was like, you know what? Let's break it. Nothing. It was uncharted territory with the current state of the game. And funnily enough, I actually thought AD carries were still the strongest bot laners, even when I was playing Mage's bot, but I don't think anyone agreed with me. But when I was playing against AD carries, I had the hardest time laning, because I was playing against other mages. Like, maybe the players just had no idea what they were doing, but even the ones that did, I just didn't, it was much easier to lane. That said, I feel it's very similar now. Yeah, I play stuff like Malphite, I play stuff like Zac. It's about, I need a weak side top laner perhaps that can scale well and does this and this. And this and this, what that defines is what can make champion X better than champion A or Y or whatever you want to call it. And that's why, for example, even though Aatrox is a good champion at running into a team fight and disrupting the flow of the fight, Zac does that a lot better. That's an example of why I feel like in 2020 it's much easier to get my picks going, because as a team, we're all about what works for us. I think that's something that Mithy's very good at, is making people feel very comfortable with all right, this is something new, we're going to try it. If it looks good, we can keep trying it, we can understand it.
I mean, that's something that's really exciting for me to hear from an outside perspective, because that individual agency, I think from a spectator perspective, is part of what I really love about watching Fnatic right now, watching the G2 of last year, because I think having a really static meta is actually really boring. Makes it much easier to analyze for sure, because then you can be like, oh, this guy's a good Ornn player, this guy's a bad Ornn player. But I would rather see the Zacs, the Malphites, the random ass champions in a solo lane, because I think it always adds a new variable to be considered. And it's super cool. Although I imagine it's infinitely frustrating to play against you this season as a top laner, because you never know what the weird fringe counter pick is going to be.
I mean, it can be frustrating, but also relieving, because I don't feel like my counter picks are the shy counter picks. When you play against you're like, all right, please don't pick Fiora, or please don't pick Kalista. You know what I mean? I imagine when Kalista wasn't such a big deal in the meta, that a lot of people were like, please don't, I don't want to be the first guy playing against this shit. Please don't pick Kalista. For example, at Worlds, I was like, oh, just please don't lock in Fiora. I really don't want to lane against this shit.
So I just want to clarify, because you talked about a lot there, and I think there's a lot of interesting things about kind of how the team is playing and the agency you're given. Do you feel like your success as a player is just always just going to be very positively influenced by this kind of freedom to be creative within your role?
I mean, it's obviously going to be good for me. I think it's something I'm comfortable with, playing more than one champion, and I feel like in general, don't get me wrong, I've done the opposite and it's been very successful for me, right? I don't think it's necessary for me at all. In fact, at Worlds meta, that Worlds where I performed relatively well, I was basically only playing 4 champions. That was all I was doing every single day. In solo queue, I would play one of those 4 champions without fail. I wouldn't really stray off the beaten path. It would be exactly Urgot, Aatrox, Victor, and Swain. That's all I was playing. And that's all I played on stage. Actually, I may have played Ornn. Yeah, I played Ornn a bit, but I didn't need to play that much. I had some experience on Ornn. Champion was relatively simple. Still is, but point being that when the meta suits me, I'm very happy to play exactly what the meta is. But when it doesn't exactly align with what I want to play, then I think that's when it's most important that the team is giving me space to play what I think are correct or stronger picks in the current situation.
The thing that's really interesting to me as well is when I look at how you're playing, obviously these unique picks look super good for you, right? Those are kind of, I think, your most iconic successful moments over the course of the split, just because it's just going to innately draw so many eyes when you're landing a clutch Malphite ult, or when you're taunting an Aphelios who actually can't auto-attack you because he's killing yourself on your Thornmail. Great moment in League of Legends, by the way. Absolutely love it. People in the Reddit thread were complaining about Malphite being broken, Yasuo being broken, and Gragas being broken at the same time. And I was like, that's how I know we've got a great game, is people can't actually decide which champion is broken in this context. So wonderful stuff. But your Gangplank, your set, your Aatrox, like the more I think stock standard or even boring picks, I feel like we've seen an uptick in your performance. Even just statistically,
Right.
you're getting caught significantly less than you have in
True.
past splits. In your solo killing, significantly more. So past just the picks, what has changed for you this split? Like, is it just you progressing? What's actually
Well,
happened?
I mean, of course there's that. You always get better, right? Like there's never really. Of course you can plateau as a player, but at some point you can like break past that. To be 100% honest with you, I think there wasn't. How do I put this? I don't feel like there's that many good top laners in EU right now.
Ooh.
I'll just put it that way.
That's a new direction. I was going to be ready for you to be like this inspirational training program.
No.
The rest of EU is slightly worse. That's a new angle. I like it.
It just is like, of course, the meta is something that it's pretty set. Yes, set.
Yeah.
Someone probably caught that one.
Nice.
But to give you an idea, playing Zac into Kled, for example, I don't know. I don't feel like that's something that Zac should be getting away with. I'm just gonna throw it out there. I think Kled is probably like I that's the thing. I first timed that matchup. When he locked in Kled, I was like, it's fine. But in reality, what I'm thinking is like, okay, how do I not int this?
So to be fair, I'm pretty sure that's what we thought when we were watching the broadcast too. Is we're like, on paper, this has to be wrong. Like his healing reduction,
I didn't
can pull you out of your jump.
I was just surviving. That's the idea. I was just surviving, and the fact that I was surviving is it just comes from like I feel like on stage there's like a lot of variables that people don't count in, and you get away with some really strange things. Like, and by strange I don't mean bad. It's just like, I don't think this champion should be able to do that or survive that. There's another example is when I was playing Singed into set. I believe I did that right. I believe I did it against Vitality. There was a moment where I was like, this is going to go really wrong. I think for whatever reason, they decided not to kill me. And that's when I was like, that's strange. That's very fortunate for me. And I feel like that always ends up happening when you play on stage. Is that people make this, like, when there's decisions that could go wrong, but they're like 60% good, people don't actually commit to them. Or at least in my experience, I don't see it happen very often. And I think that's like tying into something that a lot of people tried to talk about. That ties into online and stage. Whereas on stage, people have those moments where they don't make that 60% decision, like 60-40, but it's like, if it works, it's really good, and if it doesn't, it's fine. That's what you have to be. That's, I think, something you have to be weighing in when you're playing League of Legends, which is why when I do end up dying or getting caught, it's like, usually I can explain why I'm doing that. And I think that's the most important trait a player has if they actually want to improve and break past certain plateaus that you'll reach as a player, right? There's a wall. You're always going to reach the wall. When it's going to happen, we don't know. Faker reached it, to give you an idea, right?
Yeah. Are you talking about self-awareness, or are you talking about like the ability to justify your decisions?
I mean, it has to be both, right? You need to be aware of what you're doing in order to explain why you're doing it. But it's very, very key that you can, at least in my opinion, it's very, very key that you can explain why you're doing that. Because no one can help you, or your coach can't help you, or your players, your teammates. Like, no one can help you if you can't explain, this is why I did it. If you're like, I don't know, it looked like fun, then what can I really say to that, you know? Well, I thought it was funny if I went to the sideline right now and, maybe I die, maybe I don't.
Look, sometimes it looks like fun. That's all I'm saying from an outside perspective. Is sometimes without you giving that context, it does look like that. But that's part of why this year looks so good, is I just don't think we've seen the ceiling get higher, or the ceiling and the floor both get higher. Like, your average performance is significantly better. Your peak performance also looks better. So overall, it's a really solid year. And I'm kind of bummed to hear that you feel like a part of this is because top laners are so much weaker. If I think about it on paper, I can see why you'd say that. I agree.
I mean, it's not. It's obviously a part of it, but it's not like the whole story. I think like another big deal is I feel like thanks to Mithy, and that's not to take anything away from Young Buck. I think he does his job very well, and I was very satisfied with what he brought to us as a team, and I developed a lot as a player thanks to him. So I don't want to like berate him or anything like that. But
This is just praise to Mithy, not an insult to Youngbuck.
That's what I want people to understand. I don't want to like throw shade or anything like that, because again, like I do owe most of my career to Youngbuck. He did help me develop a lot as a player, and then I am here in a way thanks to him. With that in mind, Mithy, I think as a player, is very good at as a player. Well, not quite as a coach in this case. Is very good at directing feedback. So it's much easier, I feel like, for me to communicate with Oscar, because Oscar being self-made. Because it's like, I feel like it's a focus on the coaching perspective. Making sure that the players are communicating with each other is like a main focal point for Mithy's coaching, and I think that's something that changed from when Joey was in charge. It was more about, he has his points, he'll deliver them, he wants the team to play this style of macro, this is how he wants people to play, and what you do in your lane, how much CS you're up or down, these are variables that you as a player have to control. And as long as the game is in a playable state and we reach a point where we can play macro, that's good enough. Whereas with Mithy, it's much more about making sure that we're all on the same page, we're all talking to each other, we're making sure that we're communicating every important piece of information, the lane state, the wave state, how you want to like address it, how you want to deal with it, all this type of stuff is something that's going a lot more smooth, because it's an actual point of discussion in our team. Like, okay, your wave is bad, how are we going to fix it?
That's like just excellent to hear for any Fnatic fan out there, that the whole Mithy project is going so well. I know as an outsider,
it really is.
I was skeptical, because I know Mithy, and he's like a wonderful, wonderful person, incredibly intelligent about the game, but I'd never seen him in I've never seen him in that leadership capacity, right? Like, he's always been like training bot laners, but I never saw him train a team. So to hear that he's been such a good facilitator for conversation and like feedback is really good. But my question then is like, what has been the impact on just general team environment? Is everything just running super smoothly this year because everything is going so well in terms of like the professional aspect?
Well, it's a bit like 2018. I'll be honest with you. It's not perfect. Of course, it's not perfect. Like when something happens and you're like, okay, this is not good, or you don't want this to be happening. Getting to the point of actually discussing and fixing it can be a bit frustrating. There's always going to be problems in every single team. That's like the thing everybody always says, right? Every team has its issues. With that in mind, I think it feels like 2018 for me. And what I mean by that is that we still have issues as a team, but when they pop up, we discuss them and we get over them. It's not something that lingers. It's not something that we hold resentment over. It's just we fix it, try to fix it. We find a solution that everyone's actually satisfied with, and we move on. Because there's a difference between, it's fine, he did his best to fix it, and all right, that feels good. This is a solution I can get behind.
That's huge for Fnatic, because I know, obviously, everyone's always going to speculate. I feel like if there's any drama in Fnatic at all, perceived or otherwise, the public is just instantly assumes that it's 10 times worse what it is. And that's of course the most insight that I get, right, outside of some small conversations here and there with individuals on the team. So good to hear this. And I like that there's some honesty about there being problems, because I think anytime any player tells me that a team environment is perfect, I'm like, it's because you're winning. I know the second you lose a game, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to fall. There's nothing is ever as perfect as it's made out to be. It only stays that way when teams are winning. So it's good to hear that even in your success, that there's still conflict, that you're still talking about it, that you're still sorting through it. Yamato, this all sounds very picturesque to me. What are your thoughts on everything that Bwipo has said? Because he's given us actually a ton of insight into what's going on in Fnatic.
I think the key portions, like in Bwipo in specific, saying that you play with intent. I think this is super key. I think I'm with you completely that every player needs to have this. Just doing things with intent. This is how you just learn and progress in everything in life. Honestly, it's like doing things mindlessly can be fun sometimes, but you need to put intent behind it, and then you can digest it and you can redirect yourself if it isn't the perfection that you're seeking. And I think also in an environment the honesty that you're saying that every environment has problems, I think is the same in any type of relationship, and the bond and the environment and the culture you have within a team. You spend so many hours together. It's normal that there will be clashes, and how you deal with them. Being prepared to deal with them is what, in the end, defines you. And I think hearing this and seeing how Fnatic plays, it's definitely gives me the same vibes of 2018 Fnatic, as you mentioned, even so far as the same vibes of 2019 G2, the team that is kind of paving the way for what is the best level of play right now, and also being at that forefront of, innovation. I think when you are the team that is performing the best, and you are, depending on the meta, of course, as well, when you're there and you have the players that can express themselves beyond what is just the standard. I think this is also in Fnatic's gameplay, is you guys, in a lot of situations, you find opportunities that are tougher to see, and I think the same way you guys find opportunities in champions. And in general, it is a big joy to hear Bwipo's words and connect them with the gameplay that we've seen, and make a lot of sense of it, because we are working with, most of the time, assumptions.
Now we've seen a lot of, I think we'll put Yamato, and I think we've seen a lot of week-to-week growth. I think it's very evident when we look at some of your kind of earlier series against top teams in the split versus some of your later series, and obviously how confidently you played up against Mad Lions. How have you felt about progression on the team Bwipo? You compare it to 2018 Fnatic, and I think the first thing that pops into my head is not necessarily the environment and the dynamic, but instantly like the results, right? Like world finals. And I think that that's a big thing. So when you look at this, and I'm not trying to like make you hard commit, like we're going world finals, because obviously there's a lot to be seen yet in the year, but like, how have you felt about the progression? Because 2018, as great as that Fnatic looked, like in the end, there was at the end of the year, and this is one of the cases where I think there was a lot of drama, and justifiably so, because like Caps left, and I know that caught a lot of people off guard, that there were thoughts that this team kind of wasn't going to be sustainable in the future. I think Reckless talked about seeing why Caps could leave, and like I don't as an outsider want to see anything like that happen again. So I want to know, what are the good parts of 2018 Fnatic that we're keeping? Are we taking along any of this baggage from 2018 Fnatic that maybe I'm just projecting, right? I don't want to force this narrative on you guys. I don't think that's what you're trying to say, but I do want to know, like, what parts of 2018 Fnatic are sticking out here to you? What can we expect from this 2020 Fnatic?
That's a big question. Like, it's hard to answer. What exactly are we best at? It's hard to say. I think from my experience, the good parts of 2018, like in general, I think the need to put the team first is something that 2018 Fnatic did very well, and I think 2020 we're doing a much better job at that. I think it's all about the team. It's all about making sure that this is what we're doing is to win the game. This is like, winning is the goal. Winning is what we should be doing, and how can we make that? How can we make winning realistic without hating each other? Like, how can we communicate to each other in a way that's comfortable for everybody? Everybody's happy. It doesn't even need to be happy, but everyone understands each other and understands why we're doing what. Instead of just being like, after a best of 5, you're like, why were we even banning the champion? It makes no sense. Like, these are discussions that we had in 2019, for example, where it was like, I don't know why, and then whatever happened, right? That's a huge red flag for me, right? Like, when your teammates are like, I don't know why we decided to ban this champion, or why we had a high priority on that champion, or anything like this, is like, that's not good. You want to have a team that's on the same page, understands each other, understands why you're doing what, and then you move forward with that. At least in my opinion, that's like the most important thing about a team. Is like agreeing on what you're doing, and if something's a problem, like for example, this champion's really strong and we don't play it very well, like, how do we manage that? Like, do our players just suck? Like, do we need to invoke some drastic measures, or can we just find a quick solution that's efficient for everybody?
Hashtag ban Callista. every single game.
Well, I'm sure every team has had their moment with a champion like that, like with a champion, right? And again, Kalista, it's no surprise we banned the champion. It's just,
You don't have to talk about Kalista. I was just throwing a tiny bit of shade. You don't have to justify it because I don't want you to say anything that will hurt you this weekend.
It's a good example of like, this is the solution we came to, right? You can't be like, all right, no Kalista, no Senna, no Philios, no. There's a list of champions that are a little bit unbalanced. A little bit. And the question is how do you deal with that? Because some of them you can just, you can easily just find answers to, right? Like, I don't know, like if Kalista is really OP top, maybe you bust out one of your secret picks into it and you absolutely demolish Kalista. That's entirely possible. What matters is that if you decide to go for a solution like that, and you're like, all right, the champion's really broken, how do we answer that champion? Do we just ban it? Or if we play a counter to it, is this a counter that everybody can buy into? And I think the idea of everybody buying into what you're doing as a team, being a team, is more important than the actual answer.
Dang. We're going to get, I think, some excellent quotable phrases from this episode, Bwipo. I like that.
It's true, though. It's true. It is more important. It really is.
I believe it. Really. Well, I think that I remain very excited about this Fnatic lineup to see what they do. Obviously, I remain impartial domestically, but anytime I see you doing well and G2 doing well, I'm like, oh hell yeah, let's talk about Worlds, like, because that's what at the end of the day, that's where I get my true joy, is watching EU win international competitions. But focusing in kind of on the weekend ahead of us, you get the luxurious position of sitting back. And before we talk about those matchups, I have a very important discussion topic, absolutely crucial to the series ahead, and that is BM emoting. My favorite new part of competitive League of Legends. We need to talk about it. I asked Twitter for some advice, for some help to talk about what the most BM emotes are, but I wanted to get you two to weigh in on this new thing, because this is very new to us. But I don't know, when I found out that this was an option when it happened in your game. I think probably you BM emoted for or not BM, you emoted, right? It's not inherently BM. I mean, it kind of is, but thoughts on emoting in game. Bwipo, thoughts on superior BM emotes?
I think emotes are great. I mean, in general, it's just like, it's another way of communicating with the opposing player in a playful way. Like, I don't feel like you can emote and make him feel like, wow, what a douchebag, like, wow, who would do that? Emote me? What? Disgusting behavior, Like, I feel like when that happens, you're just like, oh, like when you see an emote, at least for me, it invokes a feeling of like, oh, he got me, or like when he dies and he flashes his emote, it's like, oh, whatever, like, that's pretty funny. Or you get outplayed, he flashes his emote, you're like, oh. It's like, it lightens up the mood. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very good. Like, that's what makes it a game, right? I'm sure the viewers spectating have the same feeling, when they see Malphite flashing his emote before he kills the AD carry. It's like, that's funny. Like, that's lighthearted. Like, making something as silly as that more silly just makes it more fun for everybody involved, I think. I mean, obviously the player getting fun.
That's the very concise, worded answer. But I just want to know what emote, how do you maximize that fun value? Let's not call it BM. Let's say that entertainment. What are you picking? What are your preferred emotes of choice to really have fun?
I was gold in TFT, and I got the gold TFT Pingu icon, and I think it's hilarious. The fact that it's gold just makes it so much better. It makes it so much better. Like, a challenger player flashes this gold TFT emote. Like, come on, it's so good. I love it. Like, I just love it because it also proves that I'm unskilled at something else. It just proves like I'm clearly not skilled at playing TFT. And despite that, I flashed that emote with pride. Like, I just outplayed someone. Boom! I dropped that ping.
Aren't you also the little All-Star 2019 TFT champion?
I am. And I did that by cheesing one. So again, it's not like I'm good at the game or anything. Like, if I had to make any decision, it was lost. It was just like, oh, no one else is doing this. I mean, I saw some videos on YouTube. This works. I got the right items. All right, let's go.
That's my only thing I want from the finals cast this weekend, is that if you kill someone and you spam the emote, that someone references back to your 2019 All-Star TFT champion.
Well, actually, I got
skills.
platinum in TFT, so I'm going to upgrade because Perks thought he was funny taking my emote. I saw. At the end of the game, at the last game he played, it flashed the Pingu, the gold one, so I got triggered, of course, because he stole my emote.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
I don't know if he has the same one. I've never seen him use it. I just know I love using it. I think it's hilarious. This penguin is just perfect. Like, it's just some penguin that's just happy to be there, and it's just whatever happens. It's just like it's just.
I wanted to talk about like which emote was hands down the best, but I think gold is like my favorite. I think the only thing better than that is like flashing mastery 4. You can't get mastery exactly on tournament realm.
It's like you're proud of being bad. Like you're proud of being unskilled at something.
Like, I am mediocre.
Exactly what you need. Exactly. You're proud of being mediocre, and you just let the guy know you just got owned by someone mediocre.
I want them to unlock the ranked emotes for you guys, because there's like a ranked emote that they give out every split, and you can get one for iron and bronze. And I really want them to give you all the yeah. Nice. So you get one if you play enough ranked games in any level, and then as you rank up, it's like this season it's Aphelios, and if last year it was like Morgana, Mordekaiser.
Right, I remember. I know what you mean.
No one uses these emotes, right? Because it just says you're challenger and you're in a challenger game. So why would you use that? People know you're challenger. Right? They can see that when they queue up against you. But if we could get you the iron ones, ooh.
I mean, that's when timing has to come into effect. Like the iron one, I feel like you can't make that work in every situation. And I think that's like the skill behind emotes. Like there's emotes that they're moderately funny in every situation. You have the dabbing Pingu.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
That's always a solid move. Can't go wrong with that one. But it's not unique. Everybody knows that it works.
So what's outside of the TFT one? Yamato, Bwipo, do you have any favorites? Do you have any that like outside of your TFT one that you would go to?
I know Mithy loves the crab. It's called Shell Shocked, I think. And it's just a crab going like, what? Like, it's really funny. Because he explained it to me, like you have to take the crab because when you get solo killed, surprised, you don't know what's happening. When you kill the guy, you're shocked. You don't know what's happening. When you get ganked, you don't know what's happening. So you can always flash it. It's always funny.
Basically a question mark ping, but an emote.
Basically a question mark ping. At least that's how it's being treated. So that's a pretty good one from what I've heard. Mithy loves that one.
Here's my question, Bwipo. If Yamatocannon and I pick our 3 favorite emotes and then ask all of the Fnatic fans to vote on those 3 emotes, or 4 emotes, I guess we can get 4 on a Twitter poll, would you put one of them as on your emote wheel for the people?
Sure. I don't mind. I don't use most of the emotes on my emote wheel. I usually just flash the Pingu, the TFT one. Like, he's my favorite. Like I do it a lot in solo queue. That's why I was ready on stage. It's not like I didn't even remember emoting him. Like I don't even remember. It was not a conscious decision to emote him there. It was just
part of the combo. Huh?
It's just I'm not kidding when I say that. I wasn't like prepared. I wasn't thinking I'm gonna kind of come out of the bush and emote him. It was just like I just pressed the button. I thought it was hilarious. Like I'm just playing. I'm singing like.
It's so ridiculous. A friend of mine
I love it.
Doesn't use left click and so has it bound to emote and dance simultaneously. And he plays exclusively Yasuo and low elo. Wow. Because he just A clicks to auto attack, right? And so it's pure commitment. In between autos, he'll dance and he'll emote. And that's the level of BM I want in pro play. Because we can't.
If it's bound to something, I don't think it's that good because like people spam it. Like for example, I in the past when I was playing normal games with my friends, I know that they rebound their Q spell to their Mastery 7. So every time they would press Q, they would Mastery 7. Like their emote would flash up, and it's funny for the first few times, but at some point it gets really annoying, So I'm not like impressed by that kind of BM because it's not manually. It's not manually implemented, right? Like that's what makes it tasteful BM. Is the fact that
comedic timing is
exactly
key.
You're manually inputting that command. You know it's time.
All right, I like it. Okay, well, me and Yamato will pick our 4 favorites. We'll run a Twitter poll when this episode comes out. Right. We get it somewhere on the emote wheel. No pressure to use it, but obviously bonus points if you can find an appropriate situation.
I will most likely be sticking to the Pingu. Like he's done me very good. He's been doing me very well. That said, if you find a really good emote, and I was thinking I missed an opportunity not taking the tent. The
tent is good.
Yeah, getting camped. Because if I had that one in game 3, I would have won that game no matter what on the second gank.
We can put it on
no
the
matter
list.
what. If I flashed an emote when they all ran at me under the turret, like there was 3 people, and they all flashed on me and whatnot. If I flashed that emote right there, it would be over. Like the game was just over. The enemy team can just
they can't come back from that emotional.
There's no way.
Disaster.
Like if I was that prepared for getting camped and I had an emote ready for it, like it's lost. How could you beat that? This guy is like 3 steps ahead.
You can't, Bwipo. That's the truth, and that's the kind of.
But I'm not that good, so unfortunate missed opportunity.
I'm very sad that OG wasted FPX emote.
You weren't allowed to use it.
Yeah, you weren't. It's actually not allowed.
Oh, really?
You're not supposed to. You're not supposed to use team emotes or another team's emote.
Trust me, self-made thought about it. Okay, he was rubbing his hands,
because you can get very psychological. You can let's say, I don't know, I'm thinking about history, like an RNG emote, IG emote, whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do.
To be fair, both G2 and Fnatic lost to IG that year, so
I mean, we both lost to FPX too, so.
That's true. Holy shit. Oops.
So,
you won one game, yay!
So when we flash FPX, it's like we're both hurting each other, It's like a double-edged sword, perhaps. It would be really, really funny if you flashed FPX emote playing like a similar comp to what FPX played. If we're playing like Nautilus Lee Sin and we flash FPX emote after killing Caps the 3rd time, no, that's mental. That is mental. But if you're just flashing it for fun, playing like Vigar or Zac, it's like,
Yeah, I feel like if you solo kill Wonder or Wonder solo kills you and one of you spams the IG emote, that's just it.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't really work though, because it's like, he kind of shit on you too. It's like
it's mutual suffering.
Honestly, I never really felt like I got that. I played that poorly against the Shy. There was that one Urgot game, of course, but that was honestly, and this is where the meme started, but that was more Gragas than Aurelia. It was just really broken. I mean, it still is. But Gragas is I don't know. Like, how can you play Urgot against a champion like Gragas?
How can Gragas still do all the things that he does and get away with it? That's my question.
I honestly think this champion has been the most broken champion competitively in the history of League of Legends. Whenever this champion was considered good, he was always like game-changing good.
Yeah, I completely agree. However, I do want to shift our discussion to this coming weekend. And before we can talk about your series, we inevitably have to talk about the 2 teams playing to fight you. And that's the old G2 versus Mad Lions rematch, Bwipo. And Bwipo, I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on the first G2 Mad Lions series, since you guys have now so handily dismantled them. Why do you think G2 struggled so much against Mad Lions the first time they played?
I think in general, G2 is a team that thrives off momentum. They're a very momentum-based team. They will take over a series on very small things. That said, they will also, I won't say fall apart, but like trickle apart perhaps, when things don't go their way. They're a team that they're very good at managing side waves. And they're very good at picking fights when they have the priority on those. So when, things go right, you feel like they're a team that's having control over the side waves. And when you're trying to fix your sides, they're attacking you, right? They're finding fights that are very good for them, very favorable for them. And that's what made them very difficult to play against in 2019. Because that's how it felt. In 2020, I feel like now that Caps and Perks have swapped roles, I don't feel like that's as consistent anymore. They don't have that feeling of like, oof, this is going to be rough. Once you fall behind, it's like, oof, this is not going to be a fair game. And what I mean by a fair game is that realistically speaking, when you're down a couple of thousand gold, if you can walk into a 5v5 and take a fair 5v5 fight around a Baron or a Dragon, that's usually good enough. However, in 2019, G2 as a team was very good at avoiding that. They would never give you a fair fight, a fair 5v5. Someone would be getting picked off, or they would have priority on the side wave, so you'd be losing towers in the side lane if you're trying to force a fight or something like that. Whereas now it's like something's going wrong. Not necessarily wrong, but it's definitely not going right. And it's creating many more opportunities for other teams to exploit G2 a little bit.
And I mean, I think it was surprise. Were you surprised in the same way that I think everyone else was surprised to see the extent of this when it meant losing to Mad Lions in that best of 5? Because I didn't think we were going to get to that point.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it was like very, very close, even by that point, right? Like they almost exploded the Nexus. Yes, God bless the Satchel. It was actually a correct play. The Satchel was smart. I think the mistake he made was not throwing his spells at the fountain to stop people from home guarding in. Like I think that's the only mistake I could see him making. Other than that, his decision making was relatively correct. Like I'm not going to go into the portal and whatnot, but point being, they almost won anyway, and I think that's what gives G2 that flair, right? That was the 29 G2 flair that they had. You had the series against SKT at Worlds, right? Where they won 3-1. There is no planet where you win that series from behind that much gold several times without things going a little bit right for you. I'm not going to take away that performance. Obviously, they played well, but that's exactly what I mean. Is that flair of the sidelines? Like, there's always something happening, right? There's something you have to answer. You have to be ready for it, and if you're not immediately answering it, you feel like you're too late. That's the biggest reason why I thought 2019 G2's performance was so good, is I felt like all of their players knew exactly where to be a sore, like just a pain in the, like yeah. That's how it felt. All their players are very good at exactly that. They're just really annoying, and at any point, if you weren't already there, ready to contest that wave was gone and they were gone. And then you're like, I guess I have to go all the way back to my tier 2, get that wave, push the next one, and then, guess what? Somewhere else, on the other end of the map, someone else is pushing a deep wave that they might not be able to, maybe they shouldn't push that wave. But they know when they could, or they knew when they could. And that's what made it such an annoying team to play against, and actually getting reasonable advantages against them was very difficult. And I think that they showed that in the Mad Lions series, in the sense of like, even when the games looked really doomed, they were really annoying and they almost backdoored the game. They were always taking towers, inhibitors, farm, and they're always creating a state where when they walk into that 5v5 fight, that fair fight that I just mentioned, they are in a position to actually win it. And I think that's like a very strong and very useful talent to have to play competitive League of Legends as a team, because almost always when you're playing, at least at a regional level, in Europe especially, you're almost always going to end up with that 5v5 fight. And if you're in a position where you can win it, and you've got the players that are skilled enough individually to bring you that victory, you end up winning.
Dang. Yamato, I would love to hear your thoughts on kind of the upcoming G2 versus Mad Lions rematch. I mean, because I think, Bwipo, you've done an excellent job of kind of summing up what made 2019 G2 so good, and maybe some of what leaves a little to be desired in 2020 G2. But Yamato, I'd love to hear how you feel about this rematch. I think public perception for many is just that this is going to be, G2 has woken up now. We'll see full strength G2, and it's not going to be 5 games. It's not going to be anything like the first series. What's your take?
I think preparation will be a lot easier and better for G2. I think in terms of what they prepared and what they showed into the Origin matchup, and also what Fnatic did in order, like Fnatic plan coming into Mad Lions. I think most of the games, I think there was like three AD carry bans moving into bottom side, the Kalista and I believe the Syndra. I might be remembering incorrectly, and then making sure that the bot lane matchup isn't as explosive, because it started off with Syndra trade into Kalista, and I think that was a quick loss for G2. And I think I liked also what Fnatic did in terms of just taking Azir away, and you guys showed Azir into OG, but it wasn't something that you guys played too much in the regular split. But taking that away just put Humanoid in an awkward position where he had to lock in Zoe when LeBlanc was out into too many tanks. I think that's something that you kind of want to stay away from. And I think Fnatic kind of put a spotlight on Mad Lions' weaknesses better than G2 did in their preparation. And I think running it back, winning 3 games, I don't think you can change too much within a week in terms of innovation, because I think Mad Lions had a huge advantage that the meta aligned better for them coming into the matchup against G2. I think this was the biggest edge they had. And now I feel like Fnatic figured them out. I think G2 can take that with them, and I just can't imagine a world where Mad Lions win 3 games again, because it's. I agree with the notion that it's still very difficult to win against G2. Barring though that I wasn't too excited about the series between OG and G2, but there's always this grain of salt. This not grain of salt. That's the wrong word. This kind of idea that when you face a specific team, the approach always differs, and the approach that you have facing an Origin can wildly differ from a different team, because OG is stylistically so different from everyone else. So you're allowed to, relax a bit more and maybe, play slower. So I don't know if it defines G2's level. It's always hard to judge after they just beat OG, but I believe that they would beat Mad Lions.
But do you think it's fair to say that G2 are the favorites in the series? Just to hear from you.
I mean, we agree 100% with what Yamato ended up saying. It's something that we think as a team we're assuming we're going to play G2 in the finals, because we basically showed G2 how to beat Mad pretty handily. Like this, if you do this, it's hard to end up losing to them. They're a team that commits to one side, and they're bad at playing the weak side, in the sense of they ignore the resources completely. And I think as a team in general, they're not they're very committed. They're very committed to that one side that plays 5 players. That's how they play as a team. And I think G2 as a whole is actually very well suited to play against a team like that, because they have a bunch of carry threats, right? So I think that's what they should be focusing on, and making sure that whoever ends up getting the farm is in a position to actually win the game. And I think as long as you do that against Mad, you're probably going to have a good time. And by probably, I mean, unless, we beat them, we showed them that what they were doing was not that great. Their strategy wasn't good enough to win a best of 5 against a prepared team. Because I would say that G2 wasn't prepared for the best of 5 against Mad. I think they got caught by surprise in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And with that in mind, if they just rewatch how we beat them and try to implement some of the things we were using to beat Mad Lions, this should be a relatively quick series for G2. But on the flip side, G2 also showed a best of 5 series. Did they play one, or they played one best of 5, right? They played Mad, OG, Mad, right?
Yep.
So, they showed some stuff in the OG series, and it's not like they looked invulnerable. I mean, I would say OG had pretty good chances to take at least 2 games, if not 3, honestly.
It was a bit. Go ahead.
I wouldn't say that Mad Lions are unable to prepare, right? They've seen some stuff. They also seen weakness in G2. It'll just depend on preparation. I think that's the sentiment I can agree with. Depending on how well the staff can prepare the players for the upcoming best of 5 will dictate whether or not G2 will run them over, if you will, or it'll be a close series.
But I think that sums it up nicely, right? It's if Mad have more going on, we can expect a close series. But if G2 learned from last weekend, it's close series, or it's G2 run over them. I think
I think that's going to be the middle ground, which is no middle ground at all.
Which is not. No, it's very G2 favorite, and I think it's a fair expectation to set, given their history and the players on their lineup. But now I want to talk about finals. So G2, obviously the expected opponent, which will make a lot of fans very happy. Fnatic versus G2 best of 5 once again, the first time in 2020. And so I'm kind of in 2 minds of this, Bwipo. And Yamato, if you have any thoughts about initial expectations for this series, please feel free to chime in, because you guys lost both games that you played against them in the regular season. You talked about that earlier. But also, you look like the best performing team in Europe right now. So I'm not sure how to kind of parse that out, right? Because G2's looking a little bit like they're struggling, a little bit lost. Obviously, a lot's going to change from series to series. But even in the OG series, as you mentioned, G2 didn't look super, super clean. I think experience weighed out in the end for them in some of those late game situations where OG may have walked into some bad fights. And I have no idea what to expect from the series, but I think for the first time, I would say Fnatic are my favorites. Yamato, how are you feeling?
I think, what's so weird is the fact that, I think Fnatic will be in a super, super strong position in the fact that G2 has to play back-to-back best of fives. I think that's, regardless of what your opposition is on the day, you guys have to go through that and then went 5 games against G2. I think that's incredible in itself to go one best of 5 and the next day best of 5. I think it's incredibly exhausting, and I think putting emphasis on how the bracket is looking is important. Secondly, regardless of how teams look on paper, the Fnatic G2 matchup is always, always different from how things look on paper. There seems to be so much at stake that is beyond what we're seeing. It's been said by players in interviews that are part of these series. G2 and Fnatic, there's so much, emotion involved. And judging based off of performance is very difficult because looking at the regular split games, the uncharacteristic thing that happened, sure, it's just a best of one, so maybe it's just an anomaly. I think the second game, you guys were definitely poised to win this game, and you are in the position to do so. And then there was the Nashor steal that kind of turned everything around. Game one, I think also after G2's good start, there was some sense of opportunity after they kind of got caught. Caps got kicked in the head in the bottom side, and then kind of it spun out of control. The G2 Fnatic games always are strange. I agree completely with the notion, though, that throughout playoffs and, maybe not the last weeks of regular split, because G2 honestly looked good too. Just playoffs, Fnatic has looked much, much better. But I have this small inkling, this small idea in my mind that usually G2 Fnatic, regardless of how it looks on paper, that the series plays out so different always. So it's hard to judge, but I would say Fnatic favorite for sure.
Bwipo, I want any and every thought that you have about this series. I'd love to hear it, because I think that Yamato, I like what you said, because I think you're right. Because Fnatic G2 is its own special blend of best of 5, where I feel like we leave any kind of preparation, any kind of analysis at the door to a certain degree, because even if lane phase looks somewhat like a lane phase, by 20 minutes, the game is just absolute insanity, because both teams are so good at just finding opportunities where other teams don't see it. So, Bwipo, what are your thoughts?
I think it's probably because a lot of our players are. I like to refer to them as inters, but that's fallen off a bit in favor. The idea is that we're looking for opportunities, but where we're looking for them isn't always the safest place, right? So that's usually the catalyst for the chaos to ensue, because that's what we like to call it. It's chaos. Like there's no real control over what's happening. It's just like we pick someone off. There's an opportunity. We go for it during the time that let's say we're capitalizing on a play. G2 sees a play on us, goes for a play on us, and then you walk back from fountain and then rinse repeat. And then you keep having these back and forths where it's like, what is actually happening? Up until someone gets like Baron, like a game-changing objective, perhaps Soul, perhaps Elder. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I guess it's done. I guess we lose, or I guess we win. But series like that have always felt that way. And I do think it's partly because of emotion. I think it's very hard to say why. Like as a player that plays in these series, I can't put my finger on why, but I have noticed that I don't know, there's just more going on. Like you just feel like you want to win more, you feel like you want to do more, you want to, I don't know, pop off more, I don't know. You just want to prove a point. And I think that's what changes the dynamic of this best of 5, is that you actually actively are trying to prove something, which is not something that you usually do against teams that you don't feel like are. I was beating Mad Lions, like, it's a good sign, obviously. But you're not trying to prove anything by doing that. You're just like, you're playing our series and the results will speak for themselves. Whereas when you play against a team like G2, the way how you win, the way how you play, all of this is all, in a way, it's trying to prove that, like, this is we're the best team and the best team plays this way. We don't play like you do. This is our style. This is the better way of playing. And that comes because they're individual players. They're also considered to be the best in the West. That adds on to it, right?
Yeah.
The fact that, like, when you play against one, or when I play against Wonder, he has a different way of playing the game than I do. But when I style on him or I beat him and I show him, like, this is the way, that's an extra attack on my ego board, you know? Boom, right there. Good job, me.
That was super hype, by the way. That's like, oof. That's just like, that gets me fired up to watch this matchup. Playing to prove, because like you can build up a matchup as on broadcast as a caster, right? Like we can build up these rivalries, right? And because I think like historically the evidence is there. But when I hear you talk about it, it's infinitely better than me talking about it. You know what I mean? Like you saying that stuff is just, it is 10 times better than anything I could ever say about this matchup when you talk to me about what it means to you. So start of the show, to kind of bring us full circle here, you talked about kind of setting realistic expectations. You won't be disappointed as long as you set these realistic expectations. So talk to me about your expectations specifically for Fnatic G2. Do you agree with me in your motto? Are Fnatic the favorites, Bwipo?
I can say with confidence that I fully believe that the 3 will end up on our side of the scoreboard. How many games they end up racking up before that happens is something I don't know. That's just a feeling I get. Like, I'm very confident that we're going to win. I know we're going to win 3 games. I just don't know if that's going to take 5 games in total or if that's going to take 4 or 3. And that's what I look forward to, honestly. I really look forward to that fact. The fact that I know for a fact that my expectation is that we're winning. And I think that, I said, you need to set your expectation and losing's okay. Mm-hmm. It's not okay at the end. No matter what you do, you're always going to regret not winning a final. No matter what you do. So even if you set your expectations to, I hope I can hit 10 CS per minute in the finals, it's still going to feel awful when you lose. No matter how low your expectations are. And I think that that's why when I went to Worlds in 2018, for example, I just shot to the top, Like no matter what I do, if I lose in quarters and groups, it's all going to suck. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, I'm winning Worlds.
Damn.
Same logic here. No matter what I do, if I don't win, it's going to feel awful. So I'm just going to say we're going to win. I know for a fact that we're going to win. I just believe it. I just can't not see a world where we don't win. I have a very hard time feeling that. Feeling the idea of we're going to lose. And, maybe I'll eat my words and, a week from now, everyone's going to laugh at me for saying this.
No, Bwipo, don't put the caveat in. You've nailed it. You've got your mic drop moment. Don't put in the caveat. Just leave it there. It's so actually perfect. That is so... All right, I love it. I love the confidence, dude. I love that you're not giving yourself a way out. You acknowledge kind of the risk of being disappointing, but you acknowledge it's disappointing either way. Might as well go all in on it. I want to close this out here because we're out of time. But Yamada, do you have any final words before we depart?
No, I'm super excited for what's to come. I just, it would be strange. Like I don't want to put any, shade on Mad Lions, but to rewatch that best of 5 would be very sad because of how hard you guys kind of destroyed and dissected them. But maybe in the finals it will look different. But I just want to see G2 versus Fnatic. It's going to be so exciting.
I do too. And as a final shout out to Mad Lions, the thing about being the underdog is if we say like you've got a real chance when we don't think you have a real chance and then you do it, it's like, well, you always had a real chance. It's not a big deal. If we don't think you have a chance and then you turn around and you win a series and then you beat Fnatic somehow, that's the greatest sports story of all time.
Thank you for covering me.
Yeah, no, of course. Because look, the thing is,
caveats, huh?
Yeah, sorry, got to throw that one in there before we get, hard flamed. Sorry, Bwipo. I wouldn't let you save yourself, but now we're saving ourselves. You're right. Caveats for Bwipo. Things can go wrong. Everything can go wrong. We'll see what happens at the end of the day. That's all that matters. Semifinals and finals coverage are this Saturday and Sunday. There's a special 1-hour edition of Ready Check that's at 4 p.m. Games start at 5. Ready Check starting at 4 p.m. CEST Saturday and Sunday. Do not miss it. Obviously, you won't because you're a giant league fan. Bwipo, thank you again so much for coming on.
Thank you, people.
Are you wearing the new Fnatic jersey today, Bwipo?
I'm not wearing the new jersey. I'm wearing just a thingy. Whatchamacallit?
I can't see Bwipo. They can't see me. If you're wondering, there's a new Fnatic jersey. It's coming out. It's going to be hype. I also shaved my face and it was a horrible mistake. If you're wondering why nobody commented on it, it's because they can't see my face. So God bless. Thank you for watching. This has been episode 14 of the EUphoria podcast. We'll see you guys next week for our wrap-up episode for the split.